Where do the songs come from? With me today on Where Do the Songs Come From is Jack O'Hara, songwriter, singer, guitarist, and bassist for pub rock instigators Eggs Over Easy, who have an important place in the evolution of American roots music and even punk rock. He's also a talented producer and recording artist and has always had some interesting theories and approaches to getting music written and recorded. Jack has had a long and diverse career in music that has brought him to extensive gigging in Greenwich Village, in England, and in the USA. The Eggs settled into Mill Valley in 1972 and became one of the best-loved bands in the San Francisco Bay Area. Full disclosure, Jack is an old musical cohort who was one of the first band leaders to hire me back in my 20s, and also was a partner with us in a self-built recording studio back in those days, which included cutting many Eggs Over Easy demos and other projects. A couple of those tracks ended up on their last album, Fear of Frying. I Zoom called him recently in Staten Island, and here is our conversation.
Hey. Yes, I'm funky, but I'm clean. Do you know what I mean? I get my kicks in my Cadillac. Well, I'm sitting here waiting for Mona Lisa to call. Sooner or later, every little dictator's got to fall.
All right. So it's Jack O'Hara right here on Where Do the Songs Come From? And I first mentioned that I've known Jack, I think since 1972, when I came upon your guys' scene in Mill Valley. And I think that was 72 or so, 73. Duke said, "Oh, we're going to rehearse. Why don't you come?" I go, I didn't know that. It didn't seem like that was appropriate. He goes, "Oh, no, it's fine. I think you should check these guys out." So I came to your rehearsal, and it had an impact on me, and I'll never forget it because, most bands seem to they don't have a bunch of people at the rehearsal because they're trying to get their show together, trying to get, a strong intro, a strong ending, blah, blah, blah. And you guys did this thing in the rehearsal, and you would do it live too, where you'd be setting up your shit, and some guy would be come up with an idea, little musical idea has been on his mind that day or something, just kind of playing it a little bit, adjusting the amp a little, playing it some more, and then another guy might join you for a second, and then the other guys might kind of follow. The next thing you know, there's this thing that goes on for 6, 8, 10 minutes, right? And it comes out of nowhere, and then it goes to kept getting better and better as you were playing it, and you're did as much as you could with it, and then you go, all right, let's get to this other stuff, and I thought that was pretty amazing because I've never seen anything quite like that. And then when I would go see you guys live, you'd start almost every gig. You'd start off that way, where somebody would just have a riff that's on their mind or something and start playing it, and then Audie go, "Oh yeah," and he'd play something, and the next thing you know, and then you'd go through the. Do you remember this? And then after that first thing was, maybe you didn't do it every gig, but when you did it, then you call out 111 Avenue C, and off we go into the set list,
We were probably just feeling out the sound, system or whatever,
Yeah.
We were probably just playing a little bit to see if we could hear each other.
But it wasn't like most people do, sound check where it's just a bunch of noise, Okay, give me the kick drum. The guy goes on for a while. It was you guys just jumping in and playing together, coming up with whatever.
I got to say about that band that nobody ever told anybody else what to play, man, when we were arranging our songs that I can remember, and everybody pretty much wrote the individual song themselves wholly, but we just fell in, man. We just fell in around the song, and we kind of had a natural compatibility, so we just knew what to do,
You fell in around the groove too.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was pretty evident to the other two people what it was about, when one of us was presenting a song,
I know this isn't really our topic, but this is a cool. It's a cool thing in my memory. So you and Audie were like a duo in the folk scene back east.
No, actually, well, I met Audie in Berkeley. I was there in Berkeley playing with Anna Rizzo and Vic Smith, like
Oh,
in '68. I was in L.A. and I made a couple records. With one was with David Blue. I was in the Village before that in '67, and David Blue was like a contemporary of Bob Dylan's and kind of in his circle. Uh, and he took me to L.A. to make a record with him. I was a bass player at that time, and we played at some cool places in the Village in the East Coast too before that. But so I was in L.A. for about 9 months or so, summer of '67 to spring of '68, and I played on a Ramblin' Jack Elliott record too, which is really cool. And but my girlfriend, her friends came to visit her from Berkeley, and they needed a bass player, and LA just wasn't working out for me, so I went to Berkeley to be in their band, and Slim Chance was part of their circle of friends, and I
oh
had met
wow.
him in LA also before that. And at one time, he brought Audie to our band house in Berkeley, California, and he and Slim were good songwriting partners, and they had
How did
written this
he
song
meet
for
Audie?
Lyndon
Do you know?
Ronstadt.
How did he meet Audie?
He met him in the East Coast, at like Bard College or Williams or one of these colleges, kind of precipice Ivy League schools. I'm not sure.
See, for
Uh,
some reason, I thought you guys were in the Village scene, and that's where he met Brian or something.
well, that is true. So at some point, by the fall of September of '69, Vic and Anna's band had broken up, and Audie and I, like hooked up. We just played some music together one time, and it just felt magical. So we did a few things there, and we came back to the Village ostensibly just on a visit, but we stayed there. He went to
Ah,
visit his folks in Philadelphia, and I stayed in the Village, and that's when we met Brian, and the good thing happened. So we were in New York. We met Brian Hopkins. We discovered we had a beautiful sound, natural sound, all the three of us together. And the three styles of songwriting really worked out. And so, we hooked up with this manager. I think it was a connection Audie had, or a friend of his from Harvard had. And we looked him up in New York. His name is Peter Kauf. And he was an agent for now with Frank Barcelona. I can't think of the name of the talent agent, but it's one of the top talent agencies. And they had known each other because Peter had been a junior agent with that company, and he had worked. The animals were his responsibility when they were touring.
wow.
Late '60s. So, and he had met Chaz Chandler. So eventually Chaz Chandler became Jimi Hendrix's manager and producer. He actually discovered him in New York, right in the block. Right on McDougal Street, a place called the Cafe Wa. It's well-known history. And incidentally, that's where, when I was 12 years old, I went to an open mic. My mom sent me down in the Village. Go on down there, like 11 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right down, just go down there and look around. I was like 12 years old. And so I'm down there looking around at these little, like, jewelry shops and the Cafe Wa, there it was. And I went down there, and it was a typical open mic, and I heard some cool people. I met this great guy named Major Wiley, who was a black man, maybe 21, 22 years old, and he was playing blues music. And we talked and we hung out a little bit, and he taught me how to play guitar, a few chords, and I took him to meet my family. That weekend, we were staying in a local hotel, and he told my mom this kid could play, so he taught me some blues stuff, and
Nice.
she put together a few dollars that she didn't need for us to get back home in Western PA, which is 400 miles away. And he took me uptown and he got me like a Harmony acoustic guitar with a scratch on it for like $24. And
Wow.
that was the beginning of it right there. Okay, so now it's later. It's the same place, Cafe Wad. Chaz Chandler is on tour with the Animals, or maybe it's the After the Animals, but he hears Jimi playing down there, in a cover band. And he remembers it maybe from playing with one of the soul bands that was on the Animals tour. So anyway, that's how Chaz and Jimi hooked up. Chaz had him come back to London, stay with him for like 6 months, took him all around to blow everybody's mind. So that's like what, 66 or so. So now it's like 70, and Peter had Chaz come and hear us. We auditioned at this place called, now I can't think of it, West Beth. It was like an artist collective housing with studios and art studios and stuff on the west side. It's kind of subsidized, in the West Village. And Chaz came and heard us play, and they said, yeah, let's do it. So they had us come over to London for a month in December of 70 because recording costs were 1/3 the cost at that point in the UK compared to here.
Uh-huh.
So we went, we recorded, 6 or 8 songs. Maybe we had to come back because we had very short work visas. And then he had us come back in January, and we were going to finish the recording. And during that time period, our manager, Peter, decided to leave the parent company who we were actually signed to, his parent company. And so we had to lay low for like 6 months while he resolved any contract issues so he could take us with him. That was Canon Films at that time. So we had nothing to do. We were over there. So, and we wanted to play. So one day I got cleaned up. We had a house in Kentish Town in North London. That was a friend of Brian's family, and they were able to rent it to us for a while. They were doing something else. So it's a nice little attached house, like 3 bedrooms. And so I got cleaned up one night and walked up to this jazz pub that was in the neighborhood. And it was called the Tally Ho, and it was well known for jazz in the 50s and 60s. But it kind of wasn't active anymore. They still had a little jazz there, but it wasn't really, seemed, I can't say what it was, but I just went in and talked to the bartender and told him, well, we had a band, we were an American band, and we just wanted to play. We were in the neighborhood, and we would love to come and play there. And there was a little baby grand piano in there and a stage.
Wow.
And so he says to me, well, explain your music in one word, and I'll go upstairs and talk to the governess. It was actually a female owner of the bar who lived upstairs. So I said, okay, fun. I said, we're fun, And so that's how we would describe our music. So he went upstairs. He came back down in 10 minutes and said, okay, why don't you come in on Monday night and play? Okay, so there we are. We were invited to come in there on a Monday night. So we had a little PA that we got from the Robert Stigwood organization, which I mentioned. And we had a van, so we loaded our stuff and we went up there and we played, and there were like 6 people there, right? And 2 of them were like these Canadian squatters, because there were squats all around. Because at that time in England, the economy was way down. There were these vacant houses. There were young kids out of high school, what would be high school here, no job opportunities. Everybody was pissed off. And they were squatting in these houses, these vacant houses. It was a culture that was beginning to happen right then. So, they had a good time, and we got called back to come and play again. And the next time there were twice as many people there. And the next time after that, there were twice as many people as that. And it just grew in a very natural way. But meanwhile, Dave Robinson, the manager of Brinsley Schwartz, a band that was Nick Lowe's, he was a member of, before he broke out as a solo guy. he had heard about us somehow, or he just happened across us. He came to the Marquee, which is like a well-known, London nightclub in, London proper, where a lot of people played. All the people played coming up, and Chaz had booked us in there. Chaz was booking us in certain places, and Dave Robinson showed up and introduced himself to us. We were playing as a trio, no drums or anything, just doing our songs as we could. And Dave Robinson introduced himself to us backstage after the show and invited us back to the Brinsley's house, which is in the suburbs. So we went there in the middle of the night, and some of the guys were asleep. Nick was still up, so I had a nice conversation with him in his kitchen in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning.
Is that the first time you met him?
Oh yeah. And then we woke up the next day, and everybody was there, and we had a good afternoon. We played music. We played a little soccer in the yard. The guys from America were there, and I don't know if they had recorded yet, but they were around. So we met a few people there.
Which guys from America?
The band America.
Oh, the band America. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that you were there from America, but okay, I get it.
So then they started coming to our gig at the Tally Ho, the Brinsleys, and they told all their peers about it. And, the guy, Jimmy Dewar, the singer from Robin Trower, was there. Frankie Miller showed up. He hadn't made any records yet. All the roadies from all the successful bands were there. It was cool, man. And even Ben Webster, since it was an old jazz guy, since it was a jazz club, and he had played there in the 50s, he showed up one night, man, And Ben Webster is like this monster alto player,
Did he sit in with you?
Classic. No, but he sat opposite us, and he was like a little, small guy dressed really typically, kind of a round guy, and he had on a suit, suspenders, a white shirt, fedora, But he sat there for like the whole set and a half or whatever and just like grooved, and like we were so not jazz, you know what I mean? But it was, and I didn't know anything about him at the time, really,
Wow.
But it was just fun. It felt good. It all felt good. And then one time, this sax player, I don't have his name right now. There was a South African band, I think they were called the Blue Note All Stars, that was produced by the guy who produced and discovered Pink Floyd, the guy who wrote the book about bicycles in Amsterdam. He's a name guy. His name is not in the front of my mind right now, but they had them up in London, and he came around and sat in with us, playing saxophone. And he was great, man. And it was so spontaneous. And we were playing I'm Funky But I'm Clean, and he just rocked it.
That's a good one for sax. Yeah.
Yeah. So over the course of like maybe 6 months tops, 4 or 5 months, we were doing like 3.5 shows a week there, packing the joint, making our nut. We could afford our rent. We could just supporting ourselves completely.
Nice.
And meeting all these cool people that were nice. And, we did some shows with Brinsley out of town. Dave Robinson promoted us. But that was 3 or 4 years before Stiff Records or anything like that happened. So there came a time where we had to leave because our work permits were up. Our visas were up. And Chaz really wanted us to stay there, and he presented us with these contracts a couple of days before we were supposed to go home to sign with him and leave our manager, And this is kind of like a behind the scenes story, but we were like, what is this, man? We're not going to do this, We're not going to be disloyal to our manager. And so we didn't do it, and we came back home. That was like October, November of 71. So we were there most of 71.
Wow.
And, we ended up getting a good record contract with A&M Records,
Did you ever end up recording with Chaz at all?
Yeah, we recorded, 10 or 12 songs, and they ended up being demos for
This is while you were in London.
Yeah, while we were in London, and here's the great thing about that London thing. I have to say, John Steele at that point he was a drummer in the Animals, but now it's like 5 years later, and Chaz has produced Jimi Hendrix, and he's got a good management company going. He's a successful guy, and so Johnny is his right hand man in Chaz's office, right? Johnny
Ah,
stopped playing. He was the first guy to quit the Animals. None of them ever made any money because they didn't write any of the songs.
oh,
All those animal songs were grill building songs,
no kidding.
by Carole King and whoever, you know what I mean? So Johnny, we met Johnny, and he was helping us from, time to time, whatever we had to do, but we really wanted him to play with us. We got him to play on one song on the London sessions, right?
Hmm.
But when we started playing at the Tally Ho, he was up for it. So he was the drummer. And
Wow.
I'm telling you, man, we never sounded as good as with him. Never, ever, ever.
Wow.
The guy is a beautiful musician. We're soft. We don't play loud. We don't play rock, quote unquote. He just played everything perfectly, man. He brought those songs to life. It was fantastic. And it just wasn't right for him to come to the States with us and pursue a career.
Did anybody ever catch any of that recording wise at Tally Ho shows?
There's one recording that is so raw, man. It's a little tiny reel to reel, like a 3-inch reel to reel. And it's going, it's all warbly. We got our hands on it. And I can't think of the guy's name, Mick. One of the fans, one of the guys who ended up being other bands, he got it to us. And I tried to make it presentable. There's no way I could do it. It was just too shot. But there's like a minute or two of "I'm Funky but I'm Clean" in there. I think it's with the guy who played sax. I'm not sure, but you could hear how excited everybody was. You could really feel the atmosphere. That's the
Nice.
only thing that really represents, what was going on. I'll send it to you, man. You'll like it. I don't even mind if you play it, man.
Well, it wouldn't be bad. That'd be a historical item for people. It almost like we could point to it at the end of this, and people could go check it out or something.
Oh
Even
yeah,
if it
no,
sounds horrible, it's a historical record.
yeah. It's as rough as it gets, man. But
I
oh my God, man. Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know, man. I got a lot of home tapes. I got some pretty rough stuff here.
Well, our records never had that excitement. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we're songwriters, man. So
That's the tough thing about records, man. It's really hard to get a studio recording to have that excitement.
yeah. So I mean, I love the records. You know what I mean? But people talk about those times and what was going on there, and you had to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have to expound a little more. So after we left town, the managers they realized now we can promote our bands in pubs because it was never possible before. Because it was just a little watermark period where, for whatever reason, our original material was not weird on purpose. You know what I mean? It was very accessible. As anything we love. We were playing Bob Dylan songs, we were playing Ray Charles songs. Whatever we wanted to play, we would play. We did not give a fuck, man. You know what I mean? And that was a precursor, kind of, to punk.
Yeah.
And that was the attraction. So at that time, everyone was trying to have glam was up. Everybody was loud, trying to be sensational, trying to get record contracts, and we just didn't give a fuck, man. And we were just doing what we do, right?
It seems also that the punk thing mirrored this pub rock thing in that it started happening in unlikely venues.
Well, yeah, those venues were unlikely till that point.
Yeah.
I mean, so there was a progression. So the managers got a thing together, and it became quote unquote pub rock because it was just friendly, organic music in the pubs that wasn't there before. It was
Nice.
rock, but socioeconomically, the punk generation now they had a place to be themselves.
Yeah.
Now they could do it in pubs. It wouldn't have been possible before that.
Because I guess the rock scene of the '60s kept getting bigger and bigger concerts, and you're like, oh, this is going to be bigger than Woodstock, or it was all about getting bigger, and
Yeah.
then so it's quite a throwback to go.
Yeah, no, it was a total contrast what we did to any of that. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And it was like a revelation for the people that it would be a revelation for, as far as style wise. Just play good time music, make people feel good. That's what we were doing. And it wasn't that unusual in the States, but it was unusual. England is way more formal. Everything closed down at 11 p.m. All
Oh
the pubs
yeah.
closed. It's just a very more formal culture.
Apparently that tradition of pubs closing at 11 comes from World War One, I guess, because they had to do this thing where they got dark at night. So if there was bombings, in the middle of the night, there would be harder to find out where the buildings
Yeah,
were and stuff.
sure. I
Turn the
believe
lights
that.
off.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it stuck, I guess. But eventually they got nightclub type permits, which would be open later, typically, right? For other
Well,
businesses.
when we were there, no, there was a rock private club called the Speakeasy. There was a music industry club in downtown London, or somewhere in the city, and you had to have a membership.
Wow.
So you paid a membership. We played there actually too, because they had a small stage and people would play there. Nobody
But I mean,
really
like later
responded
on,
to
like
us.
later in the '70s, they started up some, or later on they started some rock clubs.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know
That
anything about
Well, when
that.
we were over there in the early '80s, they had some clubs that were open later. That I can't remember the names of them now, but I think the Rock Pod was playing them, and
Well, they might not have had alcohol.
right,
They
that's
might have
right.
just been concert venues, man, like the
Yeah,
Roundhouse or different places like that.
Dingwalls. There was a place called Dingwalls, wasn't that one of
Yeah,
them?
that was Dingwalls was fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know.
That's
I
pretty
mean, we
great,
were
man. So,
long
so
gone.
that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it was. It's really like it was a cultural phenomenon. What I was going to say was, like, we were doing. It was like it was so different because of the culture. That's why we had an impact.
Sure.
Yeah.
At one point when we were over there to do our album, we didn't play live for anybody except uh, Audie's wife Leslie's parents were there in London, so
Yeah.
she begged us to go over and visit them. So they had us over for dinner, and there's a couple of instruments around, and they really wanted us to play a little bit.
Of
And
course.
we just played a couple of songs acoustic style, and it was funny. It felt like almost felt like we're a little bit like animals in a zoo or something. We felt a little bit like, oh, look at this, look at these odd people from across
Freaks.
the pond.
You were freaks, man.
Yeah, freaks, exactly.
It's funny.
Cool.
Yeah, I visited that house. That was lovely. It was in St. John's Wood,
Oh, okay, yeah,
right?
that's right.
See that, man? I bought this guitar because my Gill guitar is just for stunk, man. After 40 years and having a few bad cracks and stuff. This is
Is there a favorite approach to songwriting, or an environment you like to be in, or a place you like to go to try to get into the mood of songwriting?
uh no, there's no place. Basically it's I mean, I've got a great place, this little sunroom in the front of my house, which is nice, but there's a lot going on, people coming and going. So it's in my head, you know what I mean? I'll just take it where I can get it. I wish I had an isolated spot devoted to that, but in my case, it's funny. I commented before about I mostly write for my stuff, and I write from my personal experiences, right? But I have to say that some of the best songs that people loved weren't that particularly, they were total fantasies, you know what I mean? Like, there's a song called Arkansas. I should demonstrate it. Do you mind if I do that?
I remember that one. That was on a Good Cheap, right?
Yeah, it's in the, which is in the Yep reissue too.
Oh, nice.
Let me see how close I am with this tuning. Now we're racing against the clock, man.
Isn't it always that way?
Oh, and you also want to know one of the highlights, any highlights that I remember. And one of the highlights is the Eggs' association with Dan Hicks. Because Dan Hicks is really a unique person. And we had done some things with him. We did like the 10th anniversary of Monterey at the Greek Theater in Berkeley, and sang on a couple of his recordings, but a few years later, actually, I guess in the 90s, maybe 2000s, I don't remember, but he came to New York and he did a spot on Conan O'Brien, and he had me play acoustic guitar with him, basically his rhythm guitar part, because he wanted to play a cocktail drum. You know what a cocktail drum is, right?
Yeah.
It's about 4 feet deep, or that's an exaggeration probably, but 3 feet deep. It's got snares on the bottom.
Right.
And it's got a little cymbal about that big on it, and it's got a kick drum beater on the bottom. So maybe the snares are somewhere else in it. But so you can kick it, and the beater on the kick goes up to the bottom. And you stand
up when you play it, yeah.
Yeah, you stand up when you play it. So he wanted to front the band with that. And so I was playing, his acoustic guitar. It was cool, man.
Nice. But you also, the X were the Opinions and backed him up vocally a lot, right?
Yeah, the Opinions. Yeah, that's what he called us. Yeah. For a while, he was running an open mic at the Old Mill Tavern in Mill Valley. And
that leads to the whole beginning of the Jug Band too. That whole thing.
Oh, there you go. Well, there you go.
You know, when that happened, like he had built that up to quite a thing. I was packed every Monday night. But one Monday in December, he had to go to L.A. and he wasn't going to be in town. So Cushman goes to us, and we were like the guys who were always there at the open mic doing a few songs. He goes, you guys know how to do this. Actually, Dan came to us, I think. He says, they need guys do it, but you guys can handle this. But, don't get too loaded. You know how it works. 15 minutes or 3 songs, whichever comes first. Do your little bit in front and get the people up. So it just happened to be when you guys were coming back from the East Coast and Duke was flying with Sparky in the back of the plane, I guess. And they got real drunk and they made up Rudolph the Bald-Headed Reindeer. And they told us about it when they got to Mill Valley, and we said, oh man, we got this gig in December. We should do that. That's so great, And then we had a Bad Weather Blues Jug Band song, and we turned it into Christmas Shopping Blues. Anyway, so it turned into, and then we did that, and that was only going to be like a handful of songs. And then Cushman goes, hey, why don't you guys come back next Christmas, or why don't you come back Christmas Eve and do a whole night? We're like, sure. And then we're like, oh shit, we only know 4 songs, so.
I didn't know anything about that, man. That's cool.
That's how that all. Yeah.
The history of. All right, let me do this song before the tape runs out, man. So this is an example of a song that just happened for whatever reason. Maybe my girlfriend told me about her uncle who used to play a saw down in the South,
Yeah.
So this is an example of a song that's not of personal experiences. It's, it's just something that you let happen. You got to let things happen. So it's. Well, I was born in Arkansas. My daddy, he is a tanner there.
You know, he never says nothing. He never does nothing except sew kid gloves for the ladies. My mama, she sits in the kitchen there, baking pecan pies to sell at the fair. You know, she never says nothing. She never says nothing. Said, where'd you go? What do you know? What do you know? Yeah, what do you know? Anyway, I wasn't born in Arkansas. My daddy wasn't a tanner there. You know,
I've heard that song a lot before, and I just realized the coolest thing about it is when you go low, the chord goes up to a 4, so you have this spread, and then it comes back. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's a very cool
just
thing.
Sing pretty song. I'll sing the last verse. Well, I'm going back to Arkansas. I'm gonna hide out on my back porch there. You know why I won't do nothing. I won't do nothing except sing pretty songs to the lady. Yeah, I'm gonna sing pretty songs to the lady. Yeah, man. So there's it is. I'm thinking this is just a little ditty, you know, has no impact. And then these Hells Angels tell me, oh my God, that fucking song.
Well, it's true, like what you said. That's good advice, to not have to be too historic. Don't be too literal. Like if something sparks something, just go with the flow with it. See where it could take you. I have tried to do that a little bit. Where I have a song that's I had a song I started called "Love Isn't the Same Without You," and it'd be too weird to make it really historical. But I sort of made it much grander, maybe more universal than it really was, and then
Yeah, and also, I mean, on the subject of songwriting, or any kind of art, it's good to just express things, not literally. I went down the street, I went to the store, I bought a glass of milk or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just throw out some phrases that have some emotion and let people think about, what it means to them, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like impressionistic painting,
Yeah, you're almost trying to trigger some memory or some emotion to someone else.
Yeah, or I'm doing it it's expressing to me, what I'm trying to express, but yeah, there's so many ways. I want to talk about, when we talk again, another part is like how complicated musically you're trying to be. And there's a Fleetwood Mac song, and the whole song is like,
yeah,
that's all that ever happens, just those 2 chord changes, but her melody changes over them, and it's a totally powerful piece of music that everybody loves.
You try to keep it really simple, like almost nursery rhyme simple.
Absolutely. Well, here's the other thing I wanted to say that I didn't say. The words themselves have to be musical.
Right.
They have to fall out of your mouth in a rhythmic, musical way.
Maybe even rhyme fun. A little bit.
well, yeah, but independent of any rhyming, I'm saying it's got to be, that's what I mean about the nursery rhyme. You know, they just got to be fun. You know, there could be nonsense. There's some great rock and roll songs with nonsense lyrics. You know,
Yeah.
Who
And a lot
Papa
of people
Do.
don't
You know
even
what I
know
mean?
the lyrics. They just like the sound of it, you know, the phonetics of it.
And they, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where the magic is for me. You
It's
know.
like the Hendrix song, you know, excuse me while I kiss this guy. You know,
Yeah.
people think how I think that there's this ongoing thing for a lot of songwriters and musicians in general that are trying, they have the sound in their head that drives them, you know, to get it out and get it down some way to play for people. And in the beginning, it's when you hear yourself played back the first time, it's horrifying, you know. And your life is all about trying to get that playback to sound more and more like the idea in your head somehow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You said people are forgiving about this, and they get the spirit even if it isn't perfect.
All the way, man. Louie, you know what I mean? 2:45, you know what I mean? I'm listening to old rock and roll records and they're out of tune, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And distorted. And you know, we're 14, 16 years old. We didn't hear any of that, man.
That's right.
You know?
You know,
That shit was
I see
either
guitar
rocking or it
players
wasn't.
now. Actually, most of the people in the band now, they're tuned in between every song. And I'm like, sometimes it holds up the show a little bit. I'm like, you know, what if we tune like every 2 or 3 songs? You know, like why does it have to be like we're in a recording session every song? You know what I mean?
I'm guilty of that, to tell you the truth.
Well, we all are at this point. But
Well, I use light strings. I usually have a new set on if I'm doing a gig. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Hey, this is pleasant as hell, man. I have to say.
Yeah, it is fun. It gets me to thinking. You know, it gets me thinking about my own processes and stuff. All right, Jack. Where do the songs come from? Meaning, like, is it your genius? Do you happen to have some genius, or are you tapping into a universal spirit, or is it your ancestors speaking through you?
I know I said all of the above, man. I mean,
You said all the good, and you said it's the unguarded. You had a long pause, and you go, "It's the unguarded moment."
yeah, it is the unguarded moment. You know, I mean, whether someone's a genius, you know, some people, everyone has special skills that they're good at. You know what I mean? Stuff that comes to them easy. You know, so. I mean, that's for somebody else to judge. You know, I have an affinity for music. You know what I mean? I've heard all the songs growing up. You know, How Much Is That Doggy in the Window has been very big for me. So, you know what I mean? It's like, for whatever reason, I'm like a musical beastie. You know what I mean? So, however, you know, good I am or whatever, you know, someone else can judge that, but I do the best I can with what I've got, you know. But as far as where the songs come from, it is the unguarded moment. You have to let things happen. I'm sure I said it before. And for me, there's a little inkling thing way down inside that I like about something that emerges, you know. And I'm kind of true to that. And it might not feel like it would be anything to anyone else, but I know I kind of like this and I kind of want to pursue it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of people get that, and they may not be songwriters. That might be people that just make a cool mixtape or playlist, you know, and they get these ideas of songs that, you know, their friends would like or whatever. People kind of get there in different ways.
Yeah, and people also do things that they don't think is that good, and other people do, and they'll never understand it, but they did do it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the funny thing about musicians and songwriters. You'll think you just wrote a killer thing, and then this other one isn't that great, and you play it for your friend, and they like the one you didn't like that much.
Exactly. Exactly. The whole point is to like follow through.
Follow through,
You just
yeah.
may think it's just not that important. Just follow through as a matter of form. You know? I think that's really important to follow through on an idea. Because you'll get used to that process. You know, that's if you want to be a songwriter, you know, I
And
think.
generally, that's pretty rewarding. I mean, sometimes you paint yourself in a corner, but it can be pretty rewarding.
Well, that's a lesson in itself if you paint yourself in a corner, you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Break it down, you know, open it up, take it somewhere else.
I have one song that I rewrote the lyrics completely 3 times, a completely different title, different concept altogether. And then finally I like it, you know. That was a hard one.
I got a song for you, man. You can finish it for me. You want to?
Oh, yeah, sure.
One too many things gone wrong. So much misunderstood. It's been so good for so long, but now it's so long for good. My deal is like opportunity is always there. It's only when you're qualified that it makes itself apparent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if I can put it any more succinctly than that, but you know, there's always an opportunity for a great book to be published, but it's only when you write it that does that opportunity even arrive.
Yeah, you got to do the various kinds of work that get you in the right space to go where you need to go.
Yeah, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. Then there it is. Boom, boom, boom. Right?
Yeah. I hear you, man. Well, excellent, Jack. I guess I got to wrap it up before they cut us off again. So
yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, you're welcome, man. This is fun.
Right on, buddy.
Okay,
right,
brother. Great
Talk
talking to you, man. Peace.
All right. Bye.
Special thanks to Jack O'Hara for joining me today on Where Do the Songs Come From? Check out more at the Fifth Mo channel on YouTube.com.